Alright, so we're going to be making another desktop humidor. This one's going to be out of cherry. I've already milled up this wood and I'm using a domino so I can connect this carcass together. Throwing the glue on the miters. And I was going to use the tape, the blue tape, super glue trick to help with clamping this up. And when I first tried it, and I got a couple of the sides clamped and worked good, and on one of them, the super glue, it just kept coming apart. So I just went back, just do regular clamping. Using that right there just for alignment. On the dominoes, I used to do the loose mortise on it. I know a lot of people do one tight mortar and one loose, and they would keep it lined up, but I'm always going to screw that up, so I just keep it on the loose. And here I'm milling up some more cherry for the top and the bottom. Planing it down to thickness here. And you're going to create these two panels. Once I get these panels glued up, they're going to be, I'm going to glue the bottom one on first. And the client for this wanted to have some engraving done on the top. So I'll be using the shaper origin to do that. Putting the cause on there just to keep everything nice and even, since I didn't use anything for alignment. And here I am, I'm gluing on that panel to the bottom. Want to get it straight as possible, but it's not as critical as getting the top on as straight as possible once the logo has been put on there, because you don't want it to be crooked. So just getting that all clamped up. And now I'm using the shaper origin here to put the customer's logo that he wants on the top of the humidor. And now I'm just getting the excess off of the bottom so I can use a flush trim router bit to get everything nice and even. I usually try to get it down to about 1/8 of an inch. Of waste still on there. That way the router bit doesn't have to work as hard. And now I'm going to glue that top on, and you'll see that I'm going to use the tape measure to get everything lined up, make sure it's nice and straight and even on all sides. Get that clamped on. Make sure you get nice and even clamping pressure all the way around. It always seems like the smaller something is, the more clamps it takes. Does anybody else ever notice that? Now once again, here I am using a flush trim router bit to get all the extra waste off of the top and the bottom. And this is my first project in my new shop, so everything's not where it's gonna stay at. Some of my camera angles are a little off. Not getting as good as shots as I normally do. And as you can see right there, there's a lot more than 1/8 of an inch of waste on there. And I didn't get it when I first spray painted that. I had to go back and just make it look like I was spray painting it because I forgot to turn the camera on. But I use that to spray paint over the logo, and then I sand it off, and it keeps the channels still black. And here I'm using my spline jig to put some splines on. There again, the splines, they're just to strengthen up the miter joints. And I cut down some pieces of walnut to use as the splines. Get those in, let it dry, and then come back with a flush trim saw and cut the excess splines off. And now I'm gonna cut the lid off with the table saw. It's a pretty critical part. You can really screw things up if you don't get it nice and even all the way around, or at the very least you'll be planing the lid and the bottom part of the box to get everything nice and even. Here I'm cutting down some Spanish cedar. I'm gonna use this to line the inside of the box, and I had to tape some, or I'm sorry, I had to make some panels for the inside because they weren't, what I had in the solid pieces weren't quite big enough, so I had to make them a little bit bigger. And this will be the lining that goes along the inside of the box. So just taping the joints together, and then I'll run a bead of glue down the joint. Just like that. Nice, good squeeze out. Clean up my mess. And now I'm gonna throw the hinges on there, so I'm just marking out for the hinges. Using the palm router to get the waste out. And then I'll come back with my chisel and tighten everything up, square off the edges. Now, I didn't really show making the cigar baskets, the cigar baskets this time. These baskets are actually left over from the previous humidor I built. The customer ended up not wanting any baskets, so I had these left over, and so I actually built this humidor around the size of those baskets. So that was a big plus. As you can see, I'm using a scrap piece of wood on the inside there with the clamp, just so I don't, while I'm using this chisel, I don't blow out the other side. Same thing with those scrap pieces of wood. This time I'm using them so I have more area for the router to ride on as I round over the edges of that liner of Spanish cedar. Because without it, I would be riding on about 3/16 of an inch, and the router will probably become a little tipsy. Now I'm just checking that the lid is going to fit nice and tight. Rounding over the inside edges. There again, rounding over the edges helps it clear the liner, that Spanish cedar. And now I'm lining the bottom of the box with Spanish cedar, making everything a nice little tight fit. It's a good friction fit already, but I'll go and add the glue anyways. Same thing with the top of the lid. Once again, so it's already a good friction fit, but that glue is gonna make it 100%. Ain't going nowhere. And now I'm screwing or drilling the holes for the hinges, and I'm gonna use some paste wax there to lubricate the holes. Come back, put the hinges on. And this is going to be the little piece that I make if you want to use the Bovita packs for keeping the humidity at a certain percentage. I like to use, a lot of times I use distilled water and paper towels. Just to each their own. I like a little bit higher humidity on my cigars, usually around 72, 73%. And I'm just rounding over all the edges. And now I made a little handle to make it easier to open up the lid on the humidor. Like I said, it is a super tight fit. And this is that little thing I made for the humidor pack or the wet paper towel, whatever you want to do. Now I'm going to use the blue tape to tape it down as a clamp. So next is putting the finish on. The customer wanted it to be the wood to be a little darker, so I did stain it. And it's an oil stain. After I oil stained it, I put lacquer over the top of it, and after a few days it started blushing on me. And so I tried a few different tricks, applying heat to get the blush out. Nothing worked. And one thing I read was if the oil didn't have time to really dry up, then it was just going to constantly blush. So at the end of the day, I wasted about $60 of lacquer. I had to sand all this back off, went down to complete bare wood, as you can see in that little window right there. And I just came back with my Rubio monocoat, nice chocolate color, foolproof. I should have known just to go ahead and go with that anyways, but you live and you learn. I definitely liked it with the Rubio way it came out. Just much better color, not as shiny, a little more matte, but I really enjoy that. So I appreciate y'all watching the video. If y'all got any questions or anything, just hit me up in the comments, and I'll do the best I can to answer them. Appreciate y'all watching.